Another day, another video talking about Brock Boeser and JT Miller and everything in between. Because I'm gonna be real here, most of these videos where we talk about one of the guys, we cannot help but bring up the other guy. Like, that's just kind of how it goes, right? They're always like this nowadays. But either way, today's video is about Brock Boeser. It's about a few other teams that might be in the mix, or at least according to Elliot Friedman, he believes they should be in the mix. And we're also gonna be highlighting JT Miller again because, dude, is it just me, or has this guy kind of played himself out of the trade market? Like, you know, the meme, congrats, you played yourself. JT Miller has played so well the past few games that all of a sudden I think about the Canucks and the trade price they had earlier on in the year, and I start to say to myself, you know, the Canucks and the way they evaluated Miller back in January, do you really think they evaluate him the same way today? Do you think they think about him the same way they do today than they did back then, before he was a top 10 point scorer in the league, before he went on yet another tremendous point streak, and before he had a 4-point night against the Montreal Canadiens, capped off by him going out there and scoring an absolutely beautiful snipe off the pickpocket of Jeff Petrie? To me, JT Miller has kind of reached that status where if any team is going out there and still trying to get this guy because he's their main priority, I don't know if there's any team that could realistically make a price that the Canucks would be comfortable with now. You saw the scraps that the New York Rangers were apparently trying to throw over to the Canucks' way in order to get Miller. That was before he became super hot fire. And so now we have ourselves a situation where Brock Boeser is apparent to be the more talked about candidate when it comes to the trade conversations because he is an expiring RFA, because he's got that qualifying offer, $7.5 million a season, and plus the fact that he's just not as good as Miller is right now. And so for any team going out there wanting to get a playoff acquisition, a playoff, rental, I'd say rental very hesitantly because Boeser still has RFA protection, but we are hearing more and more amongst different NHL media sources that Boeser might be the more likely to get traded amongst him and Miller. The question is just where. Jeff Marek said this on Sportsnet yesterday, that Brock Boeser will likely go to a team that does not only need goal scoring and help on their power play, but that can also absorb that qualifying offer of $7.4 million. Marek throws out the Washington Capitals and the LA Kings as potential suitors. He also wonders if there is a Vancouver-LA marriage on the horizon. And so you go over to these two teams, Washington and LA, and you see, okay, where exactly do their salary cap situations lie? Could they make a trade for a Brock Boeser and be willing to absorb that cap hit? Well, speaking about the cap, hey, the Washington Capitals have themselves $0 in cap space right now. They have used up $3.1 million of their LTIR, and that's pretty much what they have available to them. Brock Boeser is going to be a pretty sizable player in terms of the money if he gets traded over there. He's making 5-point-something million this season, and so automatically the Capitals would need to make some moves if they were to free up the money for Brock Boeser to enter their lineup. The way things are right now, you take a look at next season, they have themselves Schultz coming off the books, Kempny's coming off the books, and so do Daniel Sprong and Matt Irwin, not to mention Samsonov and Vanacek. So there are going to be some conversations they have when it comes to who stays, who goes, and whether or not that $7.5 million qualifying offer can realistically be absorbed. And I say realistically because the way I'm looking at it right now, unless they make some significant changes, they remove some significant pieces, it doesn't really look like to me that the Capitals would have the cap space to get this done, assuming they don't trade away a $4, $5, $6 million player, that in which they don't really have too many of. It's Wilson, Mantha, Oshie, Kuznetsov, Backstrom, Ovi, and then of course the defense, Karlsson and Orlov. Doesn't really seem like the most appropriate move for them to make, in my opinion. If you're a Washington Capitals fan, you can go out there and let me know in the comments why I am wrong or not. However, when it comes to the idea of Boeser going over to the Capitals, I think about this team and I think about the goal scoring they already have. I think about the snipage that we see from Ovechkin and TJ Oshie. All of a sudden, if you throw in a Brock Boeser as well, you get yourselves a really interesting combination of goal scoring all throughout your lineup. These guys are all pretty capable goal scorers, so the idea that Marek is throwing out there saying that the Capitals need more goals and they need more help on their power play, I mean, In isolation, I guess you could say that they could use some more help, but having Brock Boeser as an addition to Oshie and Ovi, to me that doesn't really seem like the big eureka moment as it might appear to other teams if they acquired somebody of the goal-scoring caliber Brock Boeser possesses. Boeser, if you take a look at this season and his overall production, he has been sort of in a slump. That entire Travis Green thing screwed him over, but he has been playing a lot better under the new coach and Bruce Boudreau. Boeser in his last 10 games has 9 points. In his last 5 games, he's got 4 points. This season in total, he's on pace for 25 goals, he's got 17 and 52, and he is on pace for 50 total points. Now, he did get 50 points last year in 56 games. He was under a point per game, so there you go. The Travis Green stint really did screw with his numbers. But Boeser under Boudreau is a lot better of a player, and so I don't really doubt just the goal-scoring capabilities that he has. Going over onto the LA Kings and taking a look at where their cap hit situation lies, they're in a lot more of a flexible position compared to the Washington Capitals. Take a look at this. The Kings have $600,000 in cap space, and they do have some LTIR money that they can use. Sean Walker's making $2.6 till the end of 2024, and Alex Edler is on this team right now too, making $3.5. Man, I almost forgot that Alex Edler even existed, and I feel really bad because of that. Long story short, though, the Kings do have some more cap that they can use. This LTIR space accrued is $6.1 million, and then you still have Victor Arvidsson, Brendan Lemieux, and Michael Anderson on the regular IR. That's a lot of money, and if you want to go out there and say that Boeser could be added onto the squad already without expending some more money the other way, it would work. Brock Boeser would have the ability to just come over onto LA and do what it is that he wants to do. The Kings have been a really good team this season, and they still have all this cap space that they can go out there and use. So adding on a Brock Boeser seems like a really interesting move that I'd be super intrigued to hear about if the LA Kings actually wanted to do it. We also had ourselves the conversations going around about the LA Kings and their right-hand defensive core. Jordan Spence is a prospect in their system out of Moncton in the QMJHL who is now playing for Ontario. He's an AHL rookie this year, and he's one of the top guys in the entire league when it comes to points. This is the kind of player that I think the Vancouver Canucks should probably be looking at if the LA Kings are talking about Brock Boeser in a potential trade. You have yourselves Brandt Clarke, of course, who is amazing. I do very much like what Brandt Clarke is as a prospect. You also have Helge Grans. He is in the Ontario Reign system with that Jordan Spence as well. There are so many high-caliber, top-4 potential right-hand defenseman prospects that the LA Kings have that if you trade away a Brock Boeser to this team, you need to get at the very least one of these guys. If you get Grans and a Jordan Spence, then honestly, I like the sound of that a lot. Now, I don't want to make it seem like Brock Boeser is worth that much in isolation. The fact is, he's an RFA. There is an entire conversation you're going to have to go down when it comes to re-signing this guy, and that decreases his value. But if these two teams, Washington and LA, are going to go at it, my personal preference would lie with the LA Kings. Let's go over a few more tweets to end off this video. Friedman said, "The thing about Boeser to LA makes sense. When Friedman spoke to the LA Kings GM, he told him he was hoping to not pay the same price as he did for Arvidsson, which was a second and a third, for Boeser." Now, to me, Brock Boeser is probably, or at least he's supposed to be, worth more than a second and a third. But, as we said, RFA, contract negotiations, it's going to cost a lot. The qualifying offer, 7.5, whatever. It's probably going to be a sizable amount of value that is decreased there from Brock, combined with the fact that he's having a down year. I get it, he's still a 50-point winger in the NHL, he's still a 20-goal scorer in the NHL, but there are things that you can go out there and straw pick to make it seem like he shouldn't be worth as much as he could be. It's just a question of whether or not all this bad stuff that's going on behind his profile is enough to decrease his value from what could have been, let's say, a first-round pick and another prospect to only a second and a third, you know? Despite that, though, I already talked about my trade package proposals. I like Helge Grans, I like Jordan Spence, I like the right side D. If you can get Brandt Clarke, then hey, I like that too. It just kind of is concerning if the LA Kings do not want to go out there and spend more than what is a second and a third for Boeser, because, yeah, I mean, Jim Rutherford, Patrick Allvin, we didn't see you guys in trade action just yet, but if we do, I hope you go out there and you make a good one. No more Jared McCann, no more Ryan Kessler, Nick Bonino trades here, eh? So let me know in the comments your thoughts about this entire idea over here. Vancouver, LA, Washington, trades, Brock Boeser, whatever. If you're a Canucks fan, what would you want from either of these two teams, LA or the Capitals, in a return package for a Boeser trade? If you're a fan of the Caps or the Kings, let me know, would you want a Brock Boeser on your team? And if so, what is the most you would be willing to give up for this guy? I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.